My name is Mia Carter. I remember that night very clearly. It was already late. My husband was in the shower. I was sitting on the bed, holding his phone in my hands. I wasn't looking for anything. It was just lying next to me when the screen lit up. A new message. From a name I knew far too well. Emily. My sister. I looked at the screen. Just one line. I miss you. I stared at those words for a long time. Sometimes one short message can say more than a long conversation. The water was still running in the shower. I sat there, holding the phone. And in that moment, I suddenly realized something strange. I didn't feel shock. I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel surprise. As if some part of me had already known. Until that moment, I had always thought of Emily as my sister. My closest person. I trusted her more than I trusted myself. Like long ago. When she defended me at school. When we shared secrets. When she said that all the other girls were just jealous of me. And back then, I didn't understand that sometimes a person can stay beside you your entire life. And still slowly push you away from everyone else. But I didn't notice it then. Because for me, Emily wasn't just my sister. She was my best friend. And if someone had told me back then that one day I would see her name on my husband's phone, I would never have believed it. Because when we were younger, it felt like nothing could ever exist between us except trust. And it all began long before that message. Back when we were children. If you connect with stories like this, subscribe. When we were children, Emily was always there. We grew up almost like twins, even though she was 2 years older than me. She always said she had to protect me. And back then, I believed it. We shared everything. Secrets. Clothes. Music. Even dreams about the future. In the summer, we would sit in the yard for hours, imagining what our lives would be like when we grew up. She used to say that we would always stay close. That no one would ever be able to turn us against each other. And I believed her. Emily could be very convincing. Especially when it came to other people. Every time a new friend appeared in my life, she would start acting strangely. At first, it was small things. She would say something like, "I think she's a little strange." Or, "Are you sure she's sincere with you?" Sometimes she added, "Just be careful. Some people can be jealous." She said it calmly, as if she was simply looking out for me. And over time, I really did begin to doubt people. One friend seemed too cold. Another seemed too intrusive. A third seemed too curious. And little by little, many of them simply disappeared from my life. But Emily stayed. Always. She was the one who listened to me. The one who laughed with me. The one who said that no one understood me the way she did. Sometimes she even defended me. I still remember one day at school. We were teenagers. A boy from our class said something rude to me. I just went quiet. But Emily didn't. She walked up to him and said, "If you ever talk to my sister like that again, you'll have problems." He never came near me again. And back then, I thought I was very lucky. Because I had a sister who was always on my side. I never stopped to think that gradually there were almost no other people left in my life. There was only us. Emily and me. And that is why, many years later, when I brought my new boyfriend home, it felt completely natural that the first family introduction would happen with her there. I wanted her to see the person I loved right away. And I didn't know yet that that evening would become the first moment when I felt something between us change. I brought him home on an ordinary Sunday evening. At the time, it seemed like a simple introduction. Nothing special. His name was Ryan Carter. We had been dating for several months, and I felt that our relationship was becoming serious. And honestly, I really wanted Emily to approve of him. We were sitting at the big family table. My father was talking about work. My mother was placing dinner on the table. Ryan was telling a story about his business. At first, everything was completely normal. Emily laughed. She asked questions. She listened to him very carefully. Almost too carefully. At one point, she leaned forward and said, "Ryan, did Mia tell you about the time we tried to start our own business in the yard?" I smiled. I remembered that story. Emily continued. "We were selling lemonade to the neighbors, and Mia managed to spill half of it all over herself. Everyone laughed. Ryan laughed too. But I noticed one detail. Emily was barely looking at me. She was looking at him. When Ryan said something, she lightly touched his hand. At first, it seemed accidental. Then it happened again. She joked. She laughed a little louder than usual. She interrupted conversations. And every time, she pulled the attention toward herself. At that moment, I didn't think much of it. Emily had always been very social. She knew how to be the center of attention in any room. But then there was one moment. Small. Almost invisible. Ryan was explaining how he had started his business. Emily looked at him and said, "You know, I've always liked ambitious men." For a second, the table went quiet. Then she quickly added, "Mia always chooses interesting people." Everyone smiled again. The conversation continued. But that evening, I felt something strange for the first time. As if a faint coldness had appeared in the room. I pushed the thought away. Because this was Emily. My sister. The person I trusted the most. And that's why I didn't pay attention to the small things that began happening later. And there were more and more of them. Several years passed. Ryan and I got married. Life slowly began to resemble the one we once talked about around that family table. Ryan was growing his business. I worked at a large company. We each had our jobs, our responsibilities, our routines. At first everything was calm. Normal. Like many families. But over time, I began to notice small changes. Ryan started staying late at work more often. At first, it happened occasionally. Then it started happening almost every week. "Late meeting tonight," he would say. "I need to finish a project. Clients are in another time zone." I believed him. Or at least, I tried to. Sometimes he came home very late. Sometimes he said he was staying overnight at the office. I didn't make scenes. I just listened. And watched. But the strange changes weren't only with him. Emily had changed too. Once, she used to call me almost every day. We talked about everything. Work. People. Life. Now I heard her voice less and less. She often said she was busy. "Can't today, I have things to do. Let's talk later. I'll call you back." But she almost never did. Sometimes I saw her posts on social media. She spent evenings somewhere. With someone. But she no longer shared those things with me. I asked a few times, "Is everything okay?" She answered shortly, "Of course." And quickly changed the subject. Sometimes I caught myself feeling something strange. As if something was happening in my life. But I couldn't see the whole picture. As if some details didn't fit together. But every time that thought appeared, I pushed it away. Because beside me was my husband. And beside me was my sister. Two people I trusted more than anyone. And I didn't even want to imagine that something could be happening between them without me knowing. But sometimes intuition speaks quietly. Almost in a whisper. And if you ignore it long enough, it will still find a moment to remind you. Usually when you least expect it. For example, late at night. When the house is quiet. And a message appears on someone else's phone that you were never supposed to see. That night, the house was quiet. Ryan was in the shower. I was sitting on the bed. His phone was lying next to me. I didn't pick it up. It just lit up. A new message. The sender's name. Emily. My sister. I looked at the screen. Just a few words. "I miss you." I stared at the message for several seconds. And caught myself thinking something strange. I wasn't surprised. As if some part of me had known for a long time that something was wrong. I just didn't want to admit it out loud. I placed the phone back on the nightstand. The water was still running in the shower. I slowly stood up, opened the closet, and began putting things into a bag. Without rushing. Calmly. T-shirts. Jeans. Documents. A few minutes later, the bathroom door opened. Ryan stepped out of the shower. He stopped when he saw the bag on the bed. Mia, what's going on? I kept packing. He stepped closer. Where are you going? I zipped the bag. And only then looked at him. I think you already know. He frowned. What are you talking about? Then his eyes fell on the phone. And in the next second, his face changed. You looked at my phone? His voice grew sharper. Why would you do that? He began talking faster. That's not what it looks like. You misunderstood everything. It's just a message. His calmness disappeared. I silently put on my jacket. He raised his voice. Mia, are you seriously leaving because of one message? I looked at him. Very calmly. I hope you'll be happy. He went silent. I picked up the bag and walked out of the apartment. Outside, it was cold. I placed the bag in the trunk of my car. At that moment, my phone rang. The name on the screen appeared again. Emily. I stared at the screen for a few seconds. Then answered. At first she was silent. Then she said quietly, Do you know why I did it? I said nothing. She continued. Her voice sounded almost calm. Do you remember when we were 16? I was dating Thomas. My first love. I closed my eyes. I remembered. Emily laughed softly. And then I introduced him to you. She paused. And he fell in love with you. Not with me. With you. She laughed again. So it's only fair. I was silent for a moment. Then I said calmly, Did that make you feel better? She went quiet. I continued. You destroyed my life and yours. Because of a boy who never liked you. Her breathing became heavier. I added. He told me himself back then that you weren't his type. Those were his words. Not mine. The line went silent. I stared at the road ahead. And suddenly realized something. She was silent. Because for the first time, she understood what she had done. A few seconds later, I heard a quiet sob. Then the call ended. I slowly lowered the phone. And for the first time that night, I took a deep breath. In that moment, I understood one simple thing. I lost my husband. I lost my sister. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't lose myself.